All right, good morning. Hope you're all doing well. Today we're learning Maseches Gittin Daf Pei Zayin, and we're starting at a new Mishnah at the bottom of Pei Vav Amud Beis, about 10 lines from the bottom. And says the Mishnah as follows: Shaim Shnayim Sheshalchu Shnei Gittin Shavin V'nis Arvu. Let's say there are two couples. There's Chaim ben Shmuel and there's Rachel ben Chaim. They have the same exact names. They live in the same exact city. The two Gittin could have been a photostat. They're exactly the same, but of course they were written properly. The problem is that we don't know whose is whose, right? So they get nis arvu, they get mixed up. So the halacha is no saying shnehem lazu. Each woman should be given each get, and that would then guarantee that both of them are divorced, because we just don't know whose get is whose. And then the Gemara says, the Mishnah says, lefichach ovad echad man harei hasheni batel, that if one of them gets lost, so then we can't do this very thorough approach of giving each woman each get, because one of them is lost. And if that's the case, then the second get is then batel, harei hasheni batel, and then they'd have to start over from scratch. But if both of the Gittin looked exactly the same, then they could just be given to each woman. And then the next part of the Mishnah is a little cryptic, and we're going to have to analyze the Gemara. We'll see a machlokas in the Amoraim about how to understand our Gemara. Chamisha shekasvo klal besoch get. If there are 5 that are written inside of a get, and what does that mean? 5 couples are in one divorce document. Ish ploni megarish plonis, uploni uplonis, right? It's talking about this family and that family and the next family. Everyone's included in the get. V'ha'edim milamata, and the edim are signed at the bottom. Kulan ksherim, the get is kosher for everyone. All 5 couples are divorced. V'nasen l'kol achas v'achas, and this one get that has all 5 couples' information should be handed. Couple number 1, he says to the woman, "Please accept the get." She takes the get. Okay, wife number 2, please. Okay, and you go to all 5, then they're all divorced. However, hayakosev tofes l'kol echad ve'echad. If it was written as a tofes, we don't yet know what this means. We'll see in the Gemara. And then v'ha'edim milamata. And then the signatories are found at the bottom. So then only the last couple is divorced. Es sha'edim nikari nimo, then kosher. Only the edim which are signed by the only the couple that's had right next to the signature is going to be kosher, and the others are not. So let's say you have this get that's tofes. Again, we don't know what it means. So the signature at the bottom only really connects to the last couple, and only the last couple is divorced. And the Gemara is going to analyze the difference between the get that's a klal get, which we said works for everyone, and a get that is a tofes get, which only works for the final couple. And says the Gemara, Mantana, who's the author of our Mishnah? The Gemara responds 5 lines from the bottom. Amar Rabbi Yirmiyah deloka Rebbe Lazar. It's definitely not like Rebbe Lazar. Why not? The Rebbe Lazar, if in fact it was like Rebbe Lazar, who was of the opinion, Kevan da Amar Ede Mesira Karti, since he says that the Mesira is the Iker, then it can't be that the first case in our Mishnah would be that it's like him. What did we say in the first case of our Mishnah? We have get A and get B, and they're identical. We don't know whose is whose. So to each woman, we give get A and get B just to cover our bases. That can't be Rebbe Lazar. Why not? Because halo yade b'haimi nayu kumegarsha. According to Rebbe Lazar, the whole way that we bring about a get is by the actual mesira. But you're not even sure which get is hers. So definitely not according to Rebbe Lazar. And the Gemara pushes back on this and says that may not be true. Abaye Omar that afilu tem Rebbe Lazar. Perhaps our Mishnah could also be like Rebbe Lazar. Ema, we could say Ema de boy Rebbe Lazar ksiva lishma, but nesina lishma mi boy. It may be that he does hold Ede Mesira Karti, but the only aspect of the Mesira that needs to be Lishma is that which is written. And it was written Lishma. We just don't know which get was hers. But in reality, one of the Gittin does belong to her, but Nesina Lishma lo bay. But I don't need the actual handing over to be Lishma. So maybe I'm handing it to her and I'm covering my bases. She gets get A, and then they say, okay, now take get B. Now you're officially divorced. Maybe we could even say that this fits within Rebbe Lazar. And now we're going to analyze the second half of our Mishnah, and this will take us all the way to the next Mishnah, which is at the bottom of Pei Zayin. Let's make a move on this Gemara. The Gemara says, Chamisha shekasvo klal. If we have a get that includes 5 couples in it, so our Mishnah said ksherim, that all 5 Gittin all 5 names are kosher, and therefore the get will be effective for all 5 couples. And then we had said in the case of tofes that the edim at the end would ensure that only the last couple is divorced, but the first couples mentioned in the get are not. So heichi dami klal and heichi dami tofes. What are the parameters? How do we understand the get of the klal where all 5 couples are divorced? And heichi dami tofes, what is the case of tofes where only the last couple is divorced? So machlokas Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish. Rav Yochanan, last line of Pei Vav Amud Beis. Zman echad lekulan, if there's one date that's representative of all, Aleph Elul Zehu Klal, that's a case where all the couples will be divorced. All 5 couples will be divorced. That's the only difference, is the date. And if it was Zman lekol echad ve'echad Zehu Tofes. But if by each couple there was a separate date mentioned, that's a case of Tofes. And then the signatures would only be effective on the last name in the get and not on the previous names in the get. Reish Lakish argues, Reish Lakish Amar, turning to the top of Pei Zayin Bar Aleph, no, I disagree with you, Rav Yochanan. Rav Yochanan, you said that the difference between the get of a klal and the get of a tofes is zman. I disagree. On the top of Pei Zayin Bar Aleph, the Gemara says, Afilu zman echad lekula nami havi tofes. Even if there would only be one zman, it would still be considered tofes. So if that's the case, how then does he understand klal and tofes? The Gemara says, a case of klal is where it says, anu ploni uploni, kirashnu neshosenu plonis uplonis, me, Chaim, Reuven, Yehuda, Yaakov, and Shimon. All 5 men are listed first. And it says, girashnu neshosenu, we're divorcing our wives, plonis, Rachel, Leah, Tzipora, Sprinza, all the 5 names. But it's written in buckets of men first, followed by women. In that case, that is the shita of Reish Lakish as to what klal means. And that's when all 5 women would be divorced. Maskef la Rabbi Abba, hold on one second. We're going to ask now 1, 2, 3 questions on this machlokas amoraim. That again, Reish Lakish, Rabbi Yochanan was of the opinion that zman echad lekulan is klal, that if the date is written once at the top, we're good to go, everyone's divorced. And if it's zman lekol echad ve'echad, then it's tofes. And Reish Lakish argues. So says the Gemara, Maskef la Rabbi Abba. Le Rabbi Yochanan, according to the shita of Rabbi Yochanan, the Amar Zman Echad Lekulan Zehu Klal, that if the get has one date in it, then all 5 women are divorced. So then Lechush, we should be concerned Dilma Kichas Musahade Abasra Hu Dechasimi, that maybe when the Eidim are signing, it's only talking about the last couple. How does Rabbi Yochanan ensure that when the Eidim are signing in this particular get, where there's only one date, how do we know that the mindset of the Eidim isn't to only divorce the last couple? Who knows? There's no clarity. The signatures don't say the Eidim don't write, I hereby only divorce the last couple or we don't know. So we're going on assumptions, or we just don't know. Says the Gemara, Lechush, we should have been concerned about that. After all, Milo Tanya, don't we have a brisa? The brisa writes, Eidim chasumin al she'ela shalom beget pasol. Let's say that there's a get being written, and at the end it says, P.S., please send my love to my now ex-father-in-law. Let's say he adds she'ela shalom in there. And then the Eidim sign on that. So then the din is that the get is puzzle. Why? What are we concerned about in regards to the mindset of the Eidim? Says the Gemara, Chayshinan shema al she'ela shalom chasmu. We're afraid that the Eidim only signed about the she'ela shalom. Yes, I'll do your bidding in regards to the she'ela shalom. But who says they were signing on the get? Same by us. Rabbi Yochanan, you say that the one zman means that everyone's divorced. How do you know? Maybe the Eidim were focused only on the last couple, just like over here, by the she'ela shalom. Says the Gemara, yeah, you're not a good learner, because we already had a comment about this. Lav itmar Allah. Don't we already have an answer to this question? What was the answer? Amar Rabbi Yabo, lididi mifr shali mined Rabbi Yochanan. I already saw an answer from Rabbi Yochanan. I already heard an answer from Rabbi Yochanan in this regard. Sha'alu, if the end of the get only said sha'alu, here's your get, and then it says sha'alu, please send my regards, but that would be puzzle. But if it says sha'alu, here's the get, and also the operator word is connecting the get to the final request of please send my love, then kosher. And hachanami, here the same exact thing is true, says Rav Yochanan. Dichsi be ploni, ploni. Oh, Ploni, it's not a list of names, Chaim and Sprinza, Yaakov and Rachel. It's not like that. It's Chaim and Sprinza, Rachel, Chaim, whatever. All the names are all the operators are there. And if it's if it has that vav, then everyone agrees. Hachanami dichsibe Ploni, uploni, then in fact they will be divorced. So that's very important. The ifs and the ands, like sometimes in data systems, they're like, what are your conditions? Well, condition 1 must be true. And condition 2, or is it or? So here the Gemara gives us the clarity, is that when the get is written in a way for 5 couples, then it says couple 1 and couple 2 and couple 3 instead of a laundry list, a punch list, then it actually works. Visu, another question against Rav Yochanan, 10 lines down on Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. If where each couple has a date written next to them, there he says that the Eidim only count on the last couple, and only the last couple is divorced. My area mishum tofes. Why is it that this is only going to work for the last couple because of tofes? We have a totally unrelated issue. The tepukle to havale nichta b'yom nechta malayla. You didn't get all the dates of all the couples aligned. What, one document, everybody got divorced on the same day? The assumption of the question is that people got divorced on different days. So now you have a get that for couple number 1 is Aleph Elul, couple number 2 is Yud Elul, couple number 3 is Yud Gimel Elul, and they're not all the same dates. So the Gemara creates a new Kimtan. Amar le Mark Shisha, Bereder of Chizul Rav Ashi. No. What was Rav Yochanan talking about in our Mishnah? They were all, it was all on one Sunday. It was all on the first day of the week. So here, you're right. You're right, says the Gemara, that had it been that the dates were different, we would not say this. But because all the dates are the same, we therefore do say this. Next question. The Gemara says a third of the way down, 5 lines before the wide lines. Amar Ravina l'Rabashi. L'Reish Lakish, according to the other opinion, L'Reish Lakish to Amar Zman Echa L'Chulan Nami Tofes Have, that even if there's one date for all, that's still considered to be Tofes, and only the last person will then be divorced. Says the Gemara, V'hechi dami klal. What then is the perspective of Reish Lakish on klal, on a case where all the men's and women's names are listed in the get, and all of them are divorced? So it says the Gemara, Dechsid behachi. It must be that the klal get in which all of the women are divorced, according to Reish Lakish, says like this: Anu ploni uploni. I'm Yaakov, I'm Chaim, you're Chaim, and we are in the same document. Gerashnu nishosenu plonis uplonis. Then nimsu shtei nashim misgarshos beget echad. The problem with this is that if you want to say, Reish Lakish, that this one get says Ruvain and Chaim are divorcing their wives respectively, Rachel and Chana, if you're saying that in one document, then we have a problem. What's the problem? The Gemara says nimtzu shtei nashim misgarshos beget echad. You can use one document for multiple women to get divorced.
That's my question too, because you have to give it to each person, right?
Says Michael, and says the Torah. You have to write it for this woman. V'lo la ulechaverta. One get for 2 people. I don't understand how that even works. I mean, I could understand conceptually that you hand it to woman number 1 with her name on it. I can understand conceptually how that works, but halachically it shouldn't work because the get should be limited to one person. Says the Gemara, you're right in general, but the case of klal, according to Rav Ashi, is a little different. And on the first of the long lines, the Gemara says that after we say Chaim and Ruvain are hereby divorced from Rachel and Leah, the Hadar Kasa Ploni Giresh Plonis, there's an explicit language where Chaim is divorcing Rachel, Uploni Giresh Plonis, and Yaakov is divorcing Leah, whatever the names are. And that is therefore considered to be fine. As long as the get is explicit about who's being divorced, then it's not a violation of the rule of you can't use one get for 2 people. Why is our case by women any different than the case of avadim? What is the case of avadim? If a person writes all of their properties, and in the Havamina, it is in one document to 2 avadim, kanu, that works. And the eidim u'mashachar and zezeh, then because each of them are only partially free, alamdus for another time, then they're considered to then be freed. So why over there does it work in one document? Why did that work? Says the Gemara, didn't we say that case was a shtei shtaros case, the case of the avadim? So this is like the Gemara twice today. They're saying like, you don't know what the sugya is? Come on, pay attention. That sugya was a case of two shtaros. Now the Gemara between now basically and the Mishnah is just going to give rayas on one side for Rav Yochanan's approach and on one side for Reish Lakish's approach. So this part's a little easier now that we've learned the basics. And the Gemara says halfway down, 3 lines into the wide lines, Tanya Kavased to Rav Yochanan and Tanya Kavased to Reish Lakish. Each of them have a precedent in halacha in the Tanoim. Tanya Kavased to Rav Yochanan. Chamisha shekasva b'socha get. If 5 of them were written in the get, and what did it say? Ish ploni megarish plonis. Uploni plonis, uploni plonis. If all 5 couples were explicitly written, uzman echad lekulan, and there was one date, which is exactly what Rav Yochanan said at the bottom of Pei Vav Amud Aleph, v'edim milamata, and the edim sign at the bottom, kulan ksherim. All of the cases inside of that divorce document are functional divorces. That one get with all the names, they give it to wife 1 to Shprinza, they give it to wife 2 to Rachel, they give it to wife 3 to Leah, and then all of them are functionally divorced. But says the Brisa, seemingly perfectly in line with Rav Yochanan, Zman l'kol echad ve'echad ba'edim milamata. If each couple had their own date by them, then es sha'edim nikrayim mo kasher. Only the edim that are next to one of the couples, namely the last couple, they're the only ones who get divorced. So this shita is a beautiful hand-to-glove match for Rav Yochanan. So therefore, he has a beautiful precedent within the Tanaic literature. Now, this brisa continues, though this shita is not really relevant to what we're discussing. We've already seen our proof in the brisa for Rabbi Yochanan, but the Gemara continues anyways with the following shita. If there's space between the names, then that's going to be problematic. Then the get will be puzzle. If there are no spaces between the name, then kosher, she'ein zman mafsika, and that's fine. The dates themselves don't actually ruin it. It's only physical space in the get. That's a shita that we don't need to focus on right now, but one that we should store away for the future. And that brisa is a good raya for Rav Yochanan. And as well, Tanya Kavase the Reish Lakish, it seems to be the machlokas Rav Yochanan and Reish Lakish is rooted in the Tanaim, because there's another brisa that disagrees with the brisa that supported Rav Yochanan and says the following: Chamisha shekasvo klal besocha get. If there are 5 that are written in a klal get, anu ploni uploni, I Chaim and I Yaakov, girashan is divorcing our wives, plonis uplonis Rachel and Leah. Ploni girish plonis, and then the brisa goes down and drills down to who's divorcing who. Uploni girish plonis. And then says the Gemara, Uzman echad l'chulan ve'edim milamata, kulan ksherin v'tinasin l'chol achas ve'achas. And zman l'chol echad ve'echad, ve'revach l'chol echad ve'echad ve'edim milamata, es she'edim nikrayin imo kasher. He says that in such a case, if there is a zman for each one, and there's a space between each one, then only the last couple is going to be divorced. Rav Meir Omer, Afal Pisha Ein Revach Beinei Pasal She'azman Mafsikin. But the Gemara asks on this brisa, which is a support for Reish Lakish. The Gemara says there's one thing I don't understand about this brisa, Reish Lakish. For Reish Lakish, according to you, the brisa that's being brought here for your support, my area Zman L'Kol Echad Be'echad. Why is it that we need a date for each person? Ha'amar, you already had taught us that Zman Echad L'Chulan Nami Tofes Habe. It says the Gemara, Hani Mili Hecha Delo Irvinu Meikara. That's only true when all of the names are not lumped together. Aval Hacha De Arvinu Meikara, where the initial framing was that all of the names were lumped together. Ipalig Lehuzman in, if each one has their own time, then the get will not be okay. And Ilolo, then the get will be okay. So I understand this is a little bit of a subtlety in the Gemara as to how to understand the difference between a klal get and a tofes get. But in short, a klal get works if you have 5 names that are explicit. It works under certain circumstances for Rav Yochanan, certain circumstances for for Reish Lakish, and the same is true for a tofes get, where only the last couple will be divorced. They're just struggling to understand the Mishnah, and each of them have their sources in the Tanaim as well. And we have to look in Shulchan Aruch to see how we paskin. Next get, next Mishnah. This Mishnah is the whole thing is relatively short. We're just going to go halfway down to Pei Zayin and Beis, and then we'll stop and we'll pick up the rest on Shabbos. But this new Mishnah is talking about one document, one piece of paper that has 2 columns. Column A is one star gerus, and column B is another star gerus. And if you look underneath in the Rashis, you'll see different kinds of pictures where there's text, and then underneath the text, there's a signature that goes across both columns. So what happens when the signature goes across both columns? So let's see. Shnei Gittin shekasvan zevitzadze. On one piece of paper, there's 2 Gittin. The get on the right is written for Chaim and Rachel. The get on the left is written for Yaakov and Shprinza. So they're written next to each other. Ushnayim edim ivrim, 2 Hebrew writing people. By mitachas ze letachas ze. They start writing on the right side of the page, as we do in Semitic languages, but their signature broadens so wide that it's written under both columns, column A, which was for couple A, and column B, which was for couple B. And then under theirs is Shnaim Edim Yevanim, 2 Greek signatures by mitachazeh letachazeh. Now, what we need to know is that when people are signing their name in Greek, it's not like Hebrew. In Hebrew, I'm Hillel Pinchas, and my father is Shmuel Mordechai. So we write the child's name, Ben, the son's name. And in Greek, it is Shmuel Mordechai, whose son is Hillel Pinchas. So the names are flipped. When we in Hebrew refer to our names, it's son, Ben, the father. In Greek, it's the father whose son is X, right? That's important because when we parse out where each name is located, so Hillel Pinchas would be under column A, but if I was written in Greek, it would be Shmuel Mordechai is under column A, whose son is Hillel Pinchas under column B. So the Gemara says, what happens when you have all of these signatures? 2 Israelis sign and 2 Greek people sign. So the Gemara says, only the first get is going to be kosher. The first column of the get will be kosher, and we will see why in the Gemara. That's case number 1. However, if the signatures were not 2 Israelis followed by 2 Greek people, Grecians, That Greek peoples? Anybody? Don't know. If we have one Hebrew signature followed by a Greek signature, Eid Echad ve'Eid Echad Yavani, Eid Echad Ivri, Eid Echad Yavani, and then again, ve'Eid Echad Ivri, ve'Eid Echad Yavani. So instead of 2 Hebrew, 2 Greek, it's Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew, Greek, and boin mitachazeh l'tachazeh, and their signatures on the horizon are under both columns. Get A and get B, Shneim, so it doesn't work at all. So let's analyze this, and then after this Gemara, we will stop for the day. Says the Gemara, I don't understand. Vilis kasher, we should say that all the Gittin are kasher because Hai beRuvain v'Hai beBen Yaakov Eid. Because under one Mishnah it says Ruvain, and under the other Mishnah it says Ben Yaakov. So let's talk about me and my dad. Let's say under column A it says Hillel Pinchas, and then it says Ben Shmuel Mordechai. So says the Gemara, that should work. Why? Because I can refer to myself as Ben Shmuel Mordechai. That counts. And says the Gemara, where do we see this from? Deha Tanan, we have a Mishnah. Ben Ish Ploni Eid Kasher. If I sign a document as Ben Shmuel Mordechai Eid, that counts. So what that means is under column A, it says Hillel Pinchas. Under column B, it says Ben Shmuel Mordechai Eid. Each one is valid. Hillel Pinchas is valid. And Ben Shmuel Mordechai Eid is valid. So says the Gemara, why is it that in the first case of the Mishnah, that only the right column on the get is kasher, which says Hillel Pinchas? Why? I can be referred to as Ben Shmuel Mordechai. That's totally acceptable. So says the Gemara, you're right. It could be. But the way that the names were aligned were not as you say. It was rather the kasav, Ruvain Ben Akama. The word Ruvain and Ben were under the first column. And V'Yakov Eid, only my father's name, Shmuel Mordechai, was under the second column, Abasra. So the split, the bifurcation of my name was done in a way which didn't work. Had it been only Hillel Pinchas under column A, and then under column B was Ben Shmuel Mordechai, you're 1,000% right, both Gittin would be kosher. But here, says the Gemara, that it says Hillel Pinchas Ben under column A. The word Ben is with the first part of my name. And then only Shmuel Mordechai, that's not a name. If it says Shmuel Mordechai, that's not me, that's somebody else. Ben Shmuel Mordechai is me. So it says the Gemara, therefore it doesn't work. And then the Gemara says, wait, Vilis kasher hai beRuvain Ben, Vilis kasher hai beYaakov Eid. It should still work, even if it says Hillel Pinchas Ben under column A and Shmuel Mordechai Eid under the second one. It should still work. Datnan Ish Ploni Eid kasher. Just saying Shmuel Mordechai is an Eid, that works. Says the Gemara, nope, it was missing a word. The lo kasav Eid. You would be right. You would have been right if it would have said the word Eid, but in our case, the word Eid was missing. Perhaps we can say even a little bit of a less balabatish answer on the last line of Pei Zayin Amud Aleph. Le'olam de kasav Eid. Really, it did say Eid. Under column A, it said Hillel Pinchas Ben. Under column B, it says Shmuel Mordechai Eid. What's the problem? Udiyad ilan b'hachasima delab de Yaakovu. The name Shmuel Mordechai under column B was not my father's signature. I was signing. I wrote Hillel Pinchas Ben Shmuel Mordechai Eid. Whose handwriting is that? It's mine. You're right. My father can sign and he can write Shmuel Mordechai Eid. That's true, 100%. But that's not what happened. What happened was that it was me signing, and you're trying now to reinterpret the name as my father. My father wasn't the signature. It was mine. So says the Gemara, therefore it doesn't work. And turning to the top of Pei Zayin Amud Beis, and we'll be done soon. Says the Gemara, "V'dilma b'shma de'avu chasim." Maybe when I sign Shmuel Mordechai, who is my father, maybe I'm really talking about myself. Why would that happen? Because I identify with my father. I feel close to him, so I'm going to say that it's me. Says the Gemara, "Lo shavik in shmei v'chasim shma de'avuha." People don't do that. You don't take your own name and swap it out for someone else's name and consider yourself that person, so the get will still not be kosher. The Dilma, perhaps I respect my father. I like to write the name of Shmuel Mordechai to represent me, but more in an icon kind of a way, says the Gemara. The Dilma Simona Shavya, no different than the following Amoraim, who simply made a drawing that was representative of their names. Deha Rav Tzier Kavra. Rav used to draw a fish as his signature. And Rav Chanina Charusa. Rav Chanina would draw a palm tree as his signature. Rav Chizar drew a samech as his signature. Rav Hoshaya Ayin. And Rabbi Bar Rav Huna Tzir Makusa. He would draw the mast of a ship. What do we see? Signatures are valid even when it's not my name, but rather an icon. So if Rav's signature is valid by drawing a fish, why can't I decide that my icon is going to be my father's name? Says the Gemara, because it's a good musar with my father in the room. Lo chatzif inish l'shvuye l'shma de'avua simona. It's not appropriate to take your father's name and equate it with an icon. It's not appropriate. Rav wants to sign with a fish, sei gesund, no problem. But if I want to take my father's name and turn it into the icon of my signature, that's not appropriate. That's chutzpah, that's not allowed. And therefore it would not be kosher. Asks the Gemara another question, 5 lines down, 6 lines down, Pei Zayin, going to the Mishnah. Bilis kasher hai b'shnei edim ivriim, bilis kasher hai b'shnei edim yevanim. I don't understand. We had already said that the 2 signatures, the first 2 signatures were Hebrew, so the son, Ben, the father. The 2 Greek signatures were the father who happens to have a son. Says the Gemara, they should all be kosher. Both Gittin should be kosher, not just one. Why? Ditnan. Get shekasvo ivris, the aid of Yevanis, Yevani, the aid of ivris, kosher. Why are you saying in the ratio of our Mishnah that only the first get is kosher and not the second one? Hooray, the signatures go from the horizon right to left, and it covers both Gittin. Why are we saying that the get's not kosher? It should be perfect. We have an explicit Mishnah that says we accept signatures of Yevanim. Why does Yidden, they have to be Jews, but if they're Yidden who are Yevanim and they sign in Greek, you're good. Says the Gemara, V'chi tema, and if you want to say, Kevan de muflag b'shnei shnitin, no. If you want to say, oh, no, that's a technical issue, it's that the reason why it doesn't work is because some of the lines are irrelevant to one another, because the lines that are the signatures in Greek don't work for column A, and the lines that are signs in Hebrew don't work for column B. That's not true either, because if you have a blank line, let's say I have a regular clean get, and there's 2 signatures. I sign my name, and Rob signs his name on the get as Adim. And there's space between my name and Rob's name. And then a family member says, I don't want them to get divorced. He comes in, he signs in between my name and Rob's name. And says the Gemara, V'amar Chizkiya, mila'uhu bikrovim kosher. You can't ruin the get because there's an extra line, and it's like adding a text to a check line. You're not allowed to do that. So if there's space on a check and you fill it in, even with a family member, it's kosher. For sure, the other lines of Adim, the Yevanim, shouldn't ruin the get. Says the Gemara, you might just well be right. Because there's another shita in the Tanaim that's not like our Mishnah. Hatani Ze'iri says, Shnehem Ksherim. It's taka true. Our Mishnah is wrong. Our Mishnah should be that both Gittin on that one document are in fact kosher. Why? Because the 2 Israelis who signed first names first, and then their father's name, that solidifies the first get. 2 good signatures. The second 2 signatures, which are Greek, have the son's name in the second column. That solidifies the second get. Ze'iri says, you're 100% right. I'm asking. What about our Mishnah that doesn't hold like Ze'iri? The Tana Didan, our Mishnah says, no, maybe there was a problem. Here's what happened. Let's say I'm Greek, and I see that my dad and Michael signed on a get. And then it's my job to sign next, but I sign in Greek. I see they've written in Hebrew, so I pivot. Oh, they did this in Hebrew, which is first name. I'll write in Greek, but I'll write it son's name, Ben, the father's name. Not the typical way to sign in Greek. So it says the Gemara, our Mishnah is concerned that Dilma Gundulanis Chasim, that perhaps he signed in an uncomfortable, uncommon way. The Kulhu Echad Hu Dechasimi. And all of the first names are in the first column. And therefore the second get is for sure not kosher. In other words, according to our Mishnah, the only guaranteed get is the first one, because they're written in Hebrew. It's Hillel Pinchas Ben and it's Michal Ezra Ben. It's easy. It's easy. That's clean. We don't know what's going to happen with those other signatures. Therefore, the Tana of our Mishnah says no. And the last little sugya for the day, and I haven't davened yet. I don't know if you guys have, but says the Gemara, Eid Echad Ivri ve'Eid Echad Yevani. This was the last case in the Mishnah where we had said that if the signatures were alternating Hebrew, Greek, Hebrew, Greek. So it says the Gemara, wait, V'lis kasher hai be'Eid Echad Ivri ve'Eid Echad Yevani. V'hai be'Eid Echad Ivri ve'Eid Echad Yevani. We should be able to allow both signatures to work, and it should be different than what our Mishnah said. It should be perfectly kosher instead of puzzle, which is what our Mishnah said. After all, that's not Eid Echad Ivri ve'Eid Echad Yevani kosher. Oh, come on. You got to know the Mishnayos. The Mishnayos say that if you have a signature of me as a Greek guy and you as an Israeli guy, that works as the Mishnah. So why does our Mishnah say that it's puzzle? Says the Gemara, again, maybe you're right. Hatani Ze'iri, Shneim Ksherim. I agree with you. And our Mishnah fights with Ze'iri. Or Vitana Didan, no. Dilma Gundalanis Chasim, Betlasa Echad, Bechad Echad. And what we're concerned about is the same type of concern, but he's just giving another iteration, is that perhaps of the 4 signatures, we know the 2 Israelis only signed. Israelis are stubborn. They don't change their son. It's always Hillel Pinchas Ben Shmuel Mordechai, the son, Ben the father. What we're concerned about is that maybe one of the Greek signatures pivoted, having seen the Israeli signatures, and therefore he's concerned that it's going to be puzzle, and in fact, the Mishnah paskins that it's puzzle. We'll stop right here, and on Shabbos we'll pick up at this new Mishnah on the middle of Pei Zayin Amud Beis. Wishing you all a beautiful day.